Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me here at American Jobs Factory. And so I have a guest today, Massey, who was at the People's Party. He gave a speech. He's familiar with the Yang Gang, and we're just going to bring him on and get into it and ask him all the questions we need to ask him about being up to date with everything political and even more. So, hey, how's
Hey,
it going?
how's it going? How's it going?
It's going good. So I'm excited to get you on here. It was a little
Yeah,
bit of a time, you know, uh,
no,
whatever
yeah,
we did back and forth, but
Y-
we're getting it done. So that's what's important.
no, yeah, definitely a bit of a phone tag, especially in the days of Corona and winding down Corona and kind of winding up. Things are crazy right now, but I really appreciate you having me on. It's definitely a pleasure, and yeah, I've been looking forward to the chat for quite a bit. So, glad to finally make it happen.
So awesome. So you seem to be a pretty connected guy. So let the people know exactly who you are. A little bit about what you do and just some background.
Yeah. So, all right. Oh, geez. I should have rehearsed something, right? But my background is, I'm an engineer, but that's like my education, my formal, that's what my degree says.
Okay.
I've always been a creative person. I've been making music since I was like 15. And after, going through college, I studied undergrad at Rice U. I got into, really wanting to try to promote my music, and so ended up building a startup that uses AI and social media people on the internet to help create playlists and content and integrate music into the videos. And so that's what my day job is. One of them. That's one startup. We have a team of 6 of us, and we're actually just launching. It's super exciting. We're just launching our beta today. So like not coordinated with this, but I'm super excited. We get to it's happening today. And then my other day job is I am a lead of product for another startup that condenses water from the air, takes humidity from the air, condenses it to liquid water using new patent we've developed. And so I'm leading that on the product development and help essentially designing the prototype and the experiments, and sort of taking my background as an experimental physicist and engineer and bringing that down into like, all right, how do we take these high level ideas and actually get a working prototype that actually does the stuff that we're trying to do. So, that's getting the survival money and enough to build, help pay for the other developers and the team while we build out this other tech startup for the music. And that's part of my thing, right? But obviously we're here because I got into politics, and so I've always been passionate about helping people and trying to figure out the best way I can, and that's how I got into the music promotion tech. Is like I don't even know how to promote my music, so let me go study it and figure out a way to promote my music better, and then promote as many people's music as possible for as cheaply and efficiently as possible. So that's how that came about. And obviously, like, generating water is great for disaster relief, or places that are super arid. Water gets poisoned, you can't figure out a way to clean it, or it's super humid. We can generate it on the fly, and so that's that's how I got into like really wanting to help people. And this past political season, ever since 2016, it's just been like I've just been so sort of floored, and just how we ended up in this situation, whether left or right, it doesn't matter. It's just the craziness going on. I was like, I wanted to get more involved. And that's how I sort of dove into politics. And, Yang, I think, was really speaking something new. And I've been looking for a slightly different angle, and that's how I got it. And so I dove all in, and here I am, like 6 months later, doing podcasts and talking to great people like you. So I figure I'll tease a little bit of the politics and leave the meat for a second.
So it sounds like you're in all kinds of cutting edge entrepreneurial stuff. I mean, that's kind of what American Jobs Factory is all about. But
Mhm.
um, tell me a little bit about what got you interested in speaking at the People's Party convention, first of all, because I know you spoke there, and how did that come about?
Yeah, so the People's Party convention, that was, I obviously they tend to be a bit more quote unquote left leaning, though I really hate using those terms.
Yeah.
It's a very antiquated and outdated, and I really love Yang's not left, not right, but forward, and I think it's looked at, but we talk about it. They lean more that way. A lot of them came out the birdie camp of the Bernie of busters, those are the people who busted, right?
Right.
So
we love the Bernie Bros.
yeah, I know. I mean, it really tapped onto a large frustration and a failing of the sort of the American elite and the leaders of the economy in the country. So like, you cannot blame them at all. So the way that came about was that, when you're sort of in grassroots politics and you work your way up, you look for people who are like-minded and able to really drive and make results and make things happen, make meetings, say they're going to go do things and go do it, track people, hold, great events. And so we got connected through when I was on the board of Humanity First movement. I served my term and decided to take a break for a bit. But while I was on there, one of the other board members was in contact locally with one of their Movement for People's Party. They got talking about this event they were working on, and I was like, hey, these people are actually really cool. I come from a slightly different perspective, but I'm all about unity and showing that, we may have different solutions, but as long as we all believe in sort of the unity of the American people and improving the country, we can have slight nuanced tweaks and takes on different things, and that's okay. It's okay to disagree. We can still be friends and know that we still have the same moral values and stuff. And so I was like, these people are great. Let me go continue to work with them. And I helped, do a couple of protests and rallies with them. And they just liked how I spoke and thought I offered a different perspective that was unique. And they just kept asking me to come back and do more things for them until, I got an email saying hey, we would love you to be a speaker before Scott Santon's at the Movement for People's Party convention. So I was like, of course, that's an honor. So and then 20,000 people watching me later. That was way more than I expected. I thought it was going to be a couple thousand, but spread across the various YouTube streams and Twitter, Facebook, Twitch. It was over 20,000. So that was just mind blowing and exciting. And I wish I had, everyone would do things differently, afterwards. But overall, I stick, I'm proud of, the morality and the thing I went with. And if you have a second to watch it, you can just go YouTube, Massey People Party Convention. And I clipped Scott Santon and I's speeches together. You can go check it out there.
Well, to grow the math movement, we need to connect with, so-called progressives, because they're in the line of, moving the country forward. That's kind of the incorporated in the name of progressive.
Yeah, no, yeah. So this is the one thing when people say progressive is I think there's so many people and progressives that they're all about, progressive. I think sometimes there's some wings of them. They still try to say, no, I'm a progressive. And I really think the progressing, it's just not forward. They've started to veer off. They're moving really fast, but they've started to veer off in a direction that, they start to leave the rest of the country behind with them. And I think, I like to consider myself sort of a neo-unionist. I believe that we need to be united. I believe in the power of unions. And unions both in, businesses and having unions there, but honestly, hearkening back to the Civil War is that, we're so divided right now. We can't let this happen. The cliche, united we stand, divided we fall, but it's so true. And so I think it's so important that we stand and stay united because there's so many forces trying to divide us right now.
Right. Well, that's definitely the direction I think we need to go forward. So just can you kind of tell me a little bit about Humanity Forward, your experience and what you think they're trying to accomplish and what you think they need to do to create more of an awareness?
Yeah, so Humanity Forward is the sort of the campaign that transformed from campaign mode, run, to the a not-for-profit organization that is focused on sort of key political and social goals that are less of advancing Andrew Yang's campaign, but more of his ideas. Though sort of Andrew is still at the top of it and pushing it forward. It has helped setting up and further normalizing a lot of the talking points, as well as helping getting other candidates who sort of share that humanity first, humanity forward mentality onto the into Congress, like Donna Imam, like Austin. She lives just a couple of districts away from me in Austin. I have my dad's in Austin. I have my siblings are there, and they're just the district right over from hers. So I know the place. She's great. And there's a candidates in California, Houston, Massachusetts. We're really starting to make a caucus here. And I think that's so important And we're looking at, we have like a Project Ruby going on, which is Republicans for UBI, and we want to grow this to a bipartisan caucus. But like you said, we definitely tend to lean on the progressive side. But I think it's super important that we really actually acknowledge that why Trump has been so powerful on the evangelical side, and so much of the Republican and rural folk is that there's sort of a spiritual nature to politics that sort of has been abandoned and left to anger, that I feel like in many ways the left actually hasn't been as good as the right on talking about morality left, but like sort of the speaking to the heart of the people. I think the Republicans have a lot to teach us.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely moral issues that the Republicans lean on. I think that's how they get a lot of their base. But besides that, what do you think? Just Humanity Forward or the Yang Gang needs to do to create more awareness, especially to grow a movement for next time around, possibly.
Yeah. So there's a few things. Is that one is Trump is so. I mean, he like the whole TikTok ban that just dropped today. Like that's huge news. There's a lot of concern about security issues. Would talk legitimate ones about the ability, all the permissions TikTok gets inside your app, from Wi-Fi to other abilities, that there's glaring sort of security issues there, but also sort of to the larger concepts of economic nationalism. And so when it comes to that, I think UBI is such a good opportunity to talk about. All right, it's time to sort of unite around this sort of nationalistic economic sentiment, where it's not sort of these independent, and you hear this term thrown around on right-wing talk shows, but as the globalist elites, like the spooky goblin demons, and they mysticize them, and they do a great job of scaring, creating this scary cabal thing. But and I don't think they're mystic; they're people. They're just greedy. They're just like oftentimes super crappy, like people who just like don't have an intention of understanding why things aren't working out for so many people, because things just always worked out for them. And so using that sort of narrative,
it's like don't hate the player, hate the game. I think it's really the system that we've created.
Yeah, and so I mean, so that's sort of one thing where in my speech I talked about the Movement for People's Party. I think I differ a little bit from them, is that I really want to talk about sort of the nature of the game, that as long as you're good, you can be good and be super successful and wealthy. It's very hard, because to be good, you have to continuously give. But if you continuously do that and work to change the system and fix it, then I think you can be good. But you have to actively work to change it. And in the context of the Yang Gang, I think that's where Andrew's pretty good. Like when he tweeted out when he was not on the convention, going to speak at the convention, and he's like, yeah, honestly, I kind of thought I was going to speak. And the Yang Gang reacted, right? Like we started hashtagging, we started throwing down, and we made real political change. And I think that's one thing that's great about for all their flaws, the Democrat Party will listen to popular support, and Republicans are like, I'll just suppress the vote, right? It's a tough question, but I really would say is that it takes a long time, and I think there's this tendency, especially in the left, is just, we already have a left base. Let's just keep leaning left. Let's just keep pushing further and further left. And that's how we got support in the past. Let's just keep doing that. But eventually they hit a brick wall, and they keep trying to drag everyone further and further left. Cause we're going to keep getting more people if we keep dragging further and further left. And I think if you reframe the narrative away from this left and right stuff to really sort of speaking, not just about the material goods that people need money, but like, what does UBI mean? We're not like saying, we want $1,000 because we want money. It's like, we want to give $1,000 to everyone because we believe it's the right thing to do, because we believe like in the ability of people to go and turn that into more, and like turn that an opportunity. So I think really speaking to the enablement and the American dream, the sort of revitalization of the American dream that this gives. $1,000 a month is scraps in the bucket to the top. And if you're really fighting against that, you're really not like fighting for the people. So yeah.
Well, I feel like we, as the Yang Gang, we just need to continue to do like grassroots marketing, like we were doing during the campaign, but just focus it on the policies, like ranked choice voting,
That's huge.
universal basic income. And so just like there was a documentary that came out just recently, Inherent Good, and that was, the focus. And that's kind of like viral marketing to put out a documentary or a movie based on, universal basic income. So I think if we just keep doing those kinds of things and talking to our neighbors about these media pieces that we can put out, then we'll definitely start going in that right direction.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. Like, so one thing I think that was unique about the Yang Gang is that, like, compared to other campaigns and other movements, it felt fun. It felt like there was this fun, like, I don't want to say lightheartedness, because we understood the seriousness of the endeavor, but we recognized the funness that humanity is supposed to be, and that politics isn't supposed to be angry all the time. And you go to a Trump rally and you watch him speak, he's not like he's not railing, he's not angry, shaking his fist. He talks about fear, and he talks about, stuff that riles up the crowd. But a lot of times he's joking and cracking around, and he builds a sense of fun and community that only anger, people just get burned out from anger. They don't get excited to go and, like, let me just get really angry and frustrated and hateful. Like, building the sense of, like, funness in the community. And I think that's what really made the Yang Gang special. So, having, like, bringing that, and I think honestly, like, it will take sponsors, like, the people who have the ability to realize, stuff like UBI and democracy reform needs to take place. They need to sort of sponsor these communities and allow for these fun gatherings to take place that allow, for people to, join and participate, not for profits, and contribute to their communities and have fun while doing it. And, I think that's how we save America, is not through fear and anger and hatred, but allowing people to go experience new things within the people around them. I know COVID makes that tough, but, it's not going to last forever. And we need to start laying the foundation for that now.
Sure. And so just what was your general impression or takeaways from the primaries going through that process? Had you been through a primary before personally? Because I know I hadn't really.
No, you've been through it, and then you've been through it, right? Like, right. I've seen them. So the first time I ever started following politics, honestly, I was probably pretty young compared to most people, but so I grew up in South Texas, and I was in 8th grade. And so, I went to this small school, and I had this amazing teacher, Mrs. Blake, rest her soul.
Shout out to Miss Blake.
Yeah. So she, that's what, met my best friend, and we ended up, getting heavily involved in politics, because we were kids, 8th grade, we didn't know nothing better. Just, our families were all conservative, and they're like, all right, well, like, Republicans, because that's what daddy and mommy say. So that's what we are. And so we were going to have it was during the 2008 election, McCain versus Obama. And, they were like, all right, well, let's do a mock debate. Let's do debate in the class. And so they, who wants to do, 4 people for McCain? And, everyone hands go up, and, she chooses, the quote unquote popular kids. And, and the groups are, me and a couple other friends who are, weren't as, quite socially adept in 8th grade. She was like, well, does anyone want to do Obama? And no one raised their hand. And, like, I knew enough socially, like, I'm not going to go be the, outsider guy. But I also didn't care enough to be like, whatever, screw it. And, I raised my hand and a couple of friends, and, like, all right, we didn't know anything better. And so we just studied it and, like, started reading and getting into the politics. And that's where I started to be like, oh, there's actually some, like, decent, ideas there that I think are better than most Republican ones. And, like, that's how, like, I started getting into it. And, as time progressed, like, that was my, first race. And then there was the next Obama, where I started, fought with Romney a little bit more. I actually ended up voting for Romney for the second time around, barely. I was still super naive. But I do respect Romney. And then, so I started to follow a little more, and then, and I thought, like, holy crap, because I was Obama versus Clinton. And so that was sort of a big primary deal. And, like, it was actually on the news, and I was kind of following a little bit. And then, 2016 happens, and that's just a whole, like, what's going on?
To get back to what was your takeaway from this primary, though?
Well, so, like, it's just like every time I've been like, whoa, this is a whole other thing. And this one was just, I was in the weeds.
Right.
Trying to dissect.
That's a whole different experience. Like I didn't even know primaries like lasted that long, you know, or
Yeah,
that
yeah.
people get in like years before and start campaigning.
So I was actually looking before the political season. I was looking for outsider candidates. I was like, my gut was telling me that people are super tired of the establishment. Trump was a perfect example of that. And from the left, people are in the Democratic side. People are like, all right, well, we're going to want something a little bit similar, but obviously not as much of a blowhard and just spouter, but someone who is not from the establishment. Here's Joe Biden. But I knew that there's going to be some people like that taking steam, and so I first saw Buttigieg like February of last year, and I was like, oh, this dude's got some potential. He speaks well. He's very clearly intelligent. And then a couple months after that, I saw Yang, and I'm like, oh, this guy's more interesting. This guy's more outsider. And I'm like, I'm not sure that's going to fly. I mean, because he didn't have the same brand, recognition that Trump had. And you didn't have the same political, mainstream talking points that, Buttigieg had. But like, that's what really caught me into Yang. It made me realize so much about how much of politics is like balancing this line of like fitting in this realm of like saying stuff that people can get on. Okay, that sounds right. That sounds normal. That sounds expectable. To be like, oh, like what do you got? What have you got done for me lately? What are your new ideas? What are your exciting stuff? And so like, I think Yang did a really good job of sort of tying that line. I think a lot of it, there was just, money inside his campaign was tough to compete against other people. And his ideas were just a little too revolutionary, I think. Had this campaign happened, had COVID happened before the campaign, I think he would be killing it. But
well, my takeaway was, I mean, I'm perplexed and amazed at how much just pandering and name recognition gets you along in the process. And Joe Biden being an example, but I wonder if like we're the exception but not the rule, because we really wanted somebody with policies and was interested in making changes, but maybe we're just the exception, because it seems like most people wanted, Joe Biden when it came down to it.
well, I mean, not really. I mean, the whole thing is, I mean, he was sucking wind until he did really well, and I think it was either Virginia or like North Carolina or something like.
Yeah, it was South Carolina.
Yeah. And so like he wasn't doing. If you let all the states voted at once, he wasn't going to win. But he won one big state like after a bit, and that swung the tide. And then Bloomberg had backed out. Yang wasn't gaining ground.
Well, the establishment coalesced around him, so that was a big thing.
Yeah, he got a bunch of money, and so once the establishment coalesces,
do you think he'll take it? I mean, it looks it's on the Biden.
Okay, yeah. You know what? I don't want to be watching this video back on November, 4th and being like, oh crap, I was totally wrong on that one. But right. I mean, right now the way the polling is going, I think fundamentally him and Hillary are pretty different candidates. So they do have glaring flaws and are relatively not super likable.
It still seems super sketchy, especially like Michael Moore is not convinced that he's gonna pull it off so much. So
I'm not super convinced, but I think the one big difference, so the one thing that Trump had going from in 2016 is like all we had is establishment candidates time after time after time. And there's so many people I knew who voted for Trump there because they're like, F it, let's see what happens. Let's roll the dice. And like, this guy's a little kind of crazy, but like, I just can't trust the establishment anymore. I can't trust any of that. And let's see what happens. Let's see what happens if we do something. And
I think that's dissipated. Definitely dissipated.
Yeah, we know what happens. We know it's chaos. Like he does some innovative things, and like there's no doubt that like that was going to happen. But we can see there's just so much chaos, so much divided. Like I don't feel like we're a stronger country than we were, 4 years ago. We feel so much more divided, so much weaker. As on the national, I mean, if you're just looking at that, like it's really hard to come out and be like, we're going to be stronger in another 4 years of this. We're going to be like a healthier overall country because we're just going to like smite all the people who disagree with us, right? Like, is that the mindset like pro-Trump people have? Like, we're going to get rid of all the libtards, and because like Trump is going to like whack them on the head and make them go run crying to their mamas in their basement, because that's what all the libtards are, right? Just like 32-year-old dudes living in the mom's basement. So like,
there's definitely this idea of like, let's fight against everybody, and not only immigrants but even Americans that don't agree with us.
So like it's I just like I just, to me, just does not seem like a good way to go forward. It's only going to like escalate to more vitriol and hatred. So like, I mean, we see it in the streets already. I mean, there's been shootings, there's been violence. Like I just watched like a video of like an older man, probably like 50 or 60, like, and like he had a Trump flag or whatever, and like some 12-year-old girl in the car. The video starts after, but clearly she did something. And he just goes up to her and like starts jamming the pole through the open window and like hitting her, just like screaming. And like you're just like, what? This is a 12-year-old girl. Like you're just like, what is going on right now? So like there's just so much built up anger. I'm just checking the chat right now. Interesting question for you guys. I'm an independent candidate running in Massachusetts for city council. I'm trying to position myself as an alternative to the two-party system. Being in a liberal and progressive area, it is not easy for me to connect to voters that I am more of centrist than a liberal progressive. I want things like fiscal discipline, lower property taxes, community outreach programs, and infrastructure projects, a few things. What can I do better to reach out to voters? I want to become the first independent candidate to ever win a seat on the council in Massachusetts. That's a great, you have to really look at your type of race and like understand that it's different than a national scale, like, because it's so much, like, I mean, it's always a numbers game, but like on like a city council thing, it depends on the size of the city. If you're looking at like Boston, right, that's a huge, like, that's a big deal, and you need powerful teams, you need money, you need a bunch of like, sponsors and, endorsements and people who like can teach you the ways of the system. But any kind of, so like, but if it's a smaller city, I mean, first thing you need to know then what is your like number of votes you need to win. So like first you need to go look at historically and see like the estimated turnout, what needs to be done to win, and then you need to be able to go and look at okay, what is your conversion rate for every time you make a call? What are the best ways to do calls? Is it text baking, phone baking? Who are the people that are going out to voting? And play the numbers. It's just, we're the Yang Gang, we're math, we're data driven. And you just look at all the data and figure out the best way to reach out to them. And then figuring out what's like its marketing, figuring out what are the talking points they're responding to. You have to come across as genuine and understand your belief system, but be open to criticism. This is, though we saw Trump as someone who is not, he doesn't apologize and doesn't admit fault. Especially on a smaller scale, it's so easy to be like, oh, I actually hadn't really thought about that before. No one's going to call you out, on national television, like, you change your position on this, right? Like, go and figure out what is clicking with the people that you're talking to. And then you'll change your speeches accordingly until you find that, you're not ever going to always please everyone, but like, go find that thing that like speaks to them. I think a lot of it is just talking about unity and being like, not left, not right, but forward. Data-driven solutions, ending corruption, and not use the independent as a strength. It just takes a lot of work into selling the concept of that, like, I'm not a divider. I'm not owned by people. I am not, kowtowing or beholden to anyone. I'm solely working in this. And then you have to answer the question for yourself is, why did you get into this for the first place? I mean, like, why do you want to be on the city council? And really have a convincing answer to yourself. And then if you can convince yourself, you should be able to convince other people too.
Yeah. I think it is about, I mean, I've never campaigned for myself or anything, but I think it's about knocking on every door and talking to people, and also having getting mentors that have some kind of experience. I mean, there's lots of people like campaign managers that ran independents. So if you can connect to, somebody who's done it before, that's a great help.
Yeah, and honestly, the biggest advice I could give you is just like, if you don't win this one, don't like, I can't win, my political career is over. Go work on someone else's campaign and like see what are the things they do. And it's not this mystical, magical, spine-tingling feeling, though that's what it takes to win. There are processes. Marketing isn't just like attaching a Tesla to a rocket ship and shooting into space. There are other things when it comes to marketing, that build brand awareness and reputation, and use those tools. Do the research, put the time in. If you're for fiscal responsibility and showing you deserve the value that you put out, make sure you put out that high level of value, because you can tell the people that I'm going to be putting out this high level of value for you, and you look at my history. This is what I've done to support that idea that you can really unite and work hard to improve things for the township or whatever.
Yeah, it's powerful to volunteer for other things, to kind of show what you've done. So anyway, have you had a chance to look at my organization at all at American Jobs Factory?
Yeah, no, I've definitely take a look at it. I think it's, some of the things that I thought was the most interesting, I really liked, was the concept of companies sponsoring employees to like take a day off and work for the communities and other not-for-profits. I think that is such a brilliant concept, especially if it's either a half day on Saturday or even full day on Friday. You have to figure out where it's like company operating in the realm of reality, where they're like, right, we can't essentially lose 20% of our work, but if there comes with a tax break, that like if you pay employees to work 4 hours on a Saturday at a food bank, or Habitat for Humanity, or doing some software development for, like, I have a friend who helped my startup a little bit, but like they built like this running software for this not-for-profit running organization, and so like it was just a cool coding project they worked on for like a year, and stuff like that. You don't have to go necessarily do stuff that's totally different from your skills, but take your skills and what they are and bring them to some not-for-profits and social change organizations. And like I'm totally down for giving companies tax breaks that pay their employees, because at the end of the day, as long as we make sure companies and wealth isn't being hoarded, and we're actually going to improving our communities, I bet you these people who are actually inside the communities and invested to it will do a great job at really improving communities. So I think that, like, to me, that was like, wow, that's actually a really, really good idea. And then go ahead.
We definitely need organizations that improve things around the country, and so that's the endeavor.
Yeah.
Especially with 40 million people out of work. I mean, we need, organizations that can rebuild America basically right now, that, put people first and not just fill in the gaps to make profit. That's a big thing.
Yeah. What I was going to say is the other thing for your company is, I think the idea of the jobs board and allowing, like, not to turn profit, but actually with the mission of just making sure people have jobs. I think that's a super noble and potentially quite, I don't want to say lucrative because it's not about the money, but potentially like socially lucrative, that it really could fill an interesting like niche that isn't quite being done right, because it's been so much about engineering profit. That being said, being in the startup world, like, money is way more likely to go to a place that investors can think there's a profit that's going to be turned in there, unless you can really convince that especially politically oriented investors that, like, hey, this is actually going to keep the country more stable. And like, if the country starts to like slide and jobs go down the line because political upheaval and economic sliding down, and like investing into this, if that goes down, that means less less people are going to be buying your product because the economy's sliding because of all this upheaval. So you can see, like, this is going to be an economic stabilizer that's actually going to help improve your business over time and help maintain sort of peace and prosperity. So even if you don't want to sell it on the concept of like, oh, this is just a morally good thing you should do by like donating your money to this cause, like, this actually has a good financial reason too, because this could help stabilize the economy. I think the most critical thing you could do is getting some people who've worked at other hiring agencies, especially big ones, like big tech ones who have like, Monster and things like that, who know sort of the nuts and bolts of what makes those effective and how to get people to go using them, and get them just to support and even donate, 10, 15 hours a week, or donate their time because they've been super successful and they want to be part of the next big thing that's actually going to really make a big difference in people's lives. And get a couple people, even just one person like that, and use that one person to leverage to get another and get more money, and then keep building that snowball. Yeah.
I'm right now pretty much starting the process of really reaching out to people. So that's what I'm looking to do. I've sent a couple of emails to different people. One of them was on a podcast with Boyce. She worked at Amazon. Tried to contact her, and she was on a committee to make Amazon better, and it didn't quite work out for her. So
what happened, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, she hasn't gotten back to me yet, but those are the kind of people that I'm trying to reach out to, definitely.
Yeah, so I was actually watching this interesting video about, because for my startup, I'm currently raising funds right now to pay the rest of my development team and get us to the next level, get connections, and have find people that believe in our product and what we're building. If you're interested, email me massey@gether.to. But the point being, I was watching this interesting video about what it actually takes to go do fundraising, because this is my first time doing it. And they were like, build your dream deck of 100 investors and go find, go to LinkedIn, find people who've invested or spent time in the place that you want to work out, go find their contact info and email 100 of them. Just and all you need is to get one to commit $1,000. And then all right, we've already got $1,000 donation. All right, we need someone else to go commit 4,000. All right. And then just keep building. All right, we've got 5,000 from 2 different people donated. Can we get you down for another 3,000? And then, okay, now you get a $6,000, $10,000 donation, and you keep just building on. All right, we've had already $30,000 donated. Can we get you for a $20,000 donation or investment? Get you a seat on the board.
That's a good tip. Thank you.
Yeah, and just keep leveraging more and more and more, and have your slide deck ready. Make sure everything looks super pretty and professional, and your website looks pretty good. And show people want to see a team. So finding at least one other person to show that they're in it with you, have the vision, and help check and sanity check and build out stuff. Sounds like you have some people doing some development, so that's great. And yeah, just keep leveraging what you have to get more.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for that insight. Appreciate it.
No worries.
So again, where can people connect with you?
So Instagram, Twitter, Massey, at Mimetic Theory. You can see the name right there.
Yeah, see it.
Yeah. And then Facebook, Richard Massey Branscomb. But there's friends limits and stuff like that. So Twitter and Instagram are probably the best ways to contact me. DMs are open, and love to work and just grow.
So the perfect client, or the people that you're looking for, is somebody who wants to invest in your vision for your company that basically takes water out of the air and provides it to say it again, to farms or
that's for humanitarian. So that one's cool. So that one actually has an investor. The one I'm raising is from the music marketing one. So we curate music using AI for streamers on Twitch and eventually YouTube and stuff. But follow me if you're just interested in cool stuff. Like I said, I have a background in science as well as creative content, but I'm super into politics, and so I'll be tweeting hot takes and and would love to have a discussion there.
Okay. Well, that pretty much sums it up. Do you have any last thoughts you want to share with the people?
You know what? I think that's. I'll keep it short and sweet, and hope to be on again in the future. Thank you so much for having me on, Daniel. It's been an honor, and look forward to staying in contact.
Okay, sounds good. Well, thanks everyone for joining us for this special broadcast with Massey here, and stay tuned for more interviews in the future. Have a good night, everyone. Bye.
All right. Cheers.